Coming up this week on Sporting Journal Radio.
We don't need any more funds on the CWD topic.
Which I didn't realize I came out of a government research facility.
After 57 years, and they still don't know because it's not a prion disease. There's a lot of ways they're receiving money from this.
Broadcasting on the Sporting Journal Radio Network, wherever you get your podcasts, or watch on YouTube.
Fish on right now.
Well, we're here at the 2024 Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic, presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. And our guest now is Jeremy Smith. I fish, I hunt, and always will.
So look out for your everyday hunter, angler, and trapper that's out there.
A Fish Hunt Forever production. This is Sporting Journal Radio.
So we got a pretty heavy topic to talk about this week on the show.
COVID.
Dusty Backer's going to be here to talk about chronic wasting disease in North Dakota. Joe Henry's got a Lake of the Woods report. But
that's the heavy topic.
David is going somewhere for his birthday, and we don't know what it is. He doesn't know
included.
What it is. So we're going to get to the bottom of it, because your wife's bringing you to the Twin Cities.
Follow the science.
Birthday. All right, we're going to try to figure out what that is coming up on this week's
Happy
show.
birthday, David.
Yeah, happy birthday in January.
Yeah, it was a month ago. I think I wished you happy birthday on your birthday, but, happy birthday.
Well, thank you.
Because apparently your wife forgot.
No, that's just...
What's happening? Whatever
this event that we're going to is happening,
Concerts,
I guess.
And it's right around the same time as Valentine's Day. So are you sure she's not giving her... It's a birthday present for her.
Might be.
I got it, you guys. So
don't ruin my surprise.
But I think this is it. Oh, there's two of them, actually, so this could be one of two.
Whoa.
February 12th, there's open mic event at Wells Spirits Company in St. Paul. I think that's what you're doing.
That could be it.
Comedy or singing or what?
I don't know.
Okay, just
I was told
podcast
to have
open mic podcast with David Eckhart.
When are you leaving?
I was told business casual supper, so I'm like,
when are you leaving?
Is that jeans? Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay, so it can't be that.
Okay.
Feb 3rd. Business casual for a farmer is
jeans,
plaid shirt,
jeans and a sport coat.
Carhartts, and what are you wearing right now?
Insulated pants.
That's it.
With a sweatshirt.
You obviously didn't get the memo on FHF Hat Day.
No, I guess not.
Is that a Riverbend hat?
It is a Riverbend hat.
Lose?
Yeah, did you? We got new hats coming. Do you need a new one?
Probably.
Okay, I found it out. So on Thursday, February 13th, 2025, the current Minneapolis will host Bugsy, Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats, and Bio Soleil avec Michael Doucet.
Nailed it.
Other concert venues in Minneapolis are Xcel Energy Center. That's not it. That's in St. Paul.
No event going on.
Good job, generative AI.
AI.
Anyways, all right. This has turned into David's birthday fan line, not what's happening in the hunting and fishing world.
Well, we're wishing you luck, David.
It's been a slow week, apparently.
I don't think I'm going fishing.
We're still going to get to the bottom.
Hoping.
Maybe you are. Maybe my dad's taking
Maybe
you.
I am.
Well, let's get the show started. We can keep talking about it.
I want to figure this out.
Who are the sponsors this week?
Well, I can't figure it out if I read the sponsors, but Invergrove Toyota is the official truck sponsor.
He's going to Invergrove to get a new truck.
That's what it is.
That's
I knew
what it is. That's what it is.
If you're going to be like David and get a new vehicle, go to Invergrove Toyota. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital of the world. Plan a trip for this winter or this spring at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. OnX Hunt, see private land boundaries. Offline maps, how'd that feel? You just hit your hand.
Yeah, it felt great.
Anyways, OnX Hunt. Get that app. Tasman Lake Lodge. Catch the world record lake trout and giant pike at Saskatchewan's Tasman Lake. Learn more at tasmanlake.com. The Fargo Sportsman Show is coming up March 6th through the 9th. The Fargo Dome. You can learn more at that website.
FargoSportsShow.com.
Yeah, thank you. Prairie Sportsman, it's finally here. The new season is here Sunday. You can get ready for that. You can get caught up at previous episodes at the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel. Haybill Heights Campground and Resort. Fish out of a snow bear on Devil's Lake. Learn more at haybillheights.com. The Minnesota Deer and Turkey Classic is back March 14th through the 16th at Canterbury Park in Shakopee. Learn more at mndeerclassic.com. And Guardian Eagle Resort. Plan a trip for next summer to the Ontario waters of Guardian Eagle Resort. You can fly directly from the Twin Cities.
Yes, sir.
Learn more at guardianeagle.com. Maybe David's getting on a plane.
Yeah, maybe.
Going to a very frozen Guardian Eagle and not open Guardian Eagle Resort. Yeah. You're just going to fly there.
Fly there, check it out.
Fly home.
Claire, one of the owners, he ice fishes it once a year. I think he's about to go up there to do it. And I couldn't imagine what ice fishing there would be like because it's just as many walleyes.
Could you imagine the live scope down there?
Yeah.
Like just constantly fish?
Just solid fish.
I know what the live scope in the summertime looks like there. All right. We are going to give away a trip or two to Guardian Eagle Resort very soon. Keep listening for more details. Also, the Deer Classic, I'll be there Saturday from 11 to 1 when that takes place in March. So stop by and see us. What else is going on? All right. We should do some headlines real quick, too, Dan. It's brought to you by Invergrove Toyota.
Headlines.
That's right. Save some money right now on a new Tundra, Tacoma, or other Toyotas at Invergrove Toyota, 494 on Robert Street in the Twin Cities. They have a bunch of new 2025 Tundras in stock, dealer discounts. There's some great interest rates out. There's some additional savings. And for you, get $250 off the lowest advertised price and an additional $500 off for your trade-in. Find out more at invergrovetoyota.com/FHF. All right, Minnesota DNR is looking for some public comment right now. This is something that's been discussed a lot. This is kind of big news, actually. The rules propose increasing the maximum allowed distance between hooks and tackle configurations with multiple hooks from 9 to 18 inches. The rulemaking also allows for the use of automatic hook setting devices for ice fishing that are currently not allowed and includes clarification of the definition of hook. What do you guys think the definition?
I figured it out.
Okay.
I figured out where David's going.
Oh.
So the Target Center events calendar, February 14th. Guess what's happening?
I don't know. I can't see it.
Good, because it's a surprise.
Oh.
I hate to ruin it. Minnesota State High School League dance team tournament starts.
That's it.
That's where you're going.
You're
Could be.
dancing.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, you're
It's open
performing.
mic.
I'm performing. It's open mic.
Yeah, definitely not for high schoolers, but anyways, what were we talking about?
So would you guys be in favor of jaw jackers in Minnesota? Or
100%.
certain hook setting devices? They said certain hook setting devices. I don't know what that means, but so if you want to see like jaw jackers legal in Minnesota, they are looking for public comment right now.
Yeah, I'm in favor. I mean, I think it can eliminate some fish getting gut hooked. How many times have we all put a tip up out and you don't check it for a while?
Yeah.
And there's been a fish on here for quite some time and now it's bleeding through the gills
spooled.
and it's dead. Whereas it could get hooked in the corner of the mouth with a hook setting device.
It's funny how I feel like the non-hook setting device, like that rule was meant to try to make it harder to catch fish, make it, more challenging, yet using the automatic hook setting devices may be better for the fish.
Maybe more ethical.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, we're like shocker, Minnesota's one of the only states around that you
Late to
can't
the
use
party.
them. So, yeah, go figure.
So March 20th, they want to hear from you. You can email it or snail mail it to Bethany Bethke. All the details on the Minnesota DNR website. Maybe we'll probably put a link. We'll drop a link in the description here, this YouTube video. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can click that link to send in your comment on using hook setting devices here in the state of Minnesota. Pretty interesting discussion about CWD coming up, guys.
Yeah. So we've talked about CWD on the show before quite a bit, and then somebody got a hold of you, Bret, after we shared a headline about CWD in Minnesota and sent us this guy's information, said, hey, you should have this guy on the show. He's done some research. He's got an interesting stance on CWD and the fight against it. And we said, okay, let's see what he has to hear, or let's hear what he has to say. I get my senses. My senses get confused sometimes.
Senses here. Spidey sense getting all tingly.
You have 5 of them. And
Dusty Backer is his name, and he has Chronic Wasting Dis-Ease on Facebook if you want to do a little bit of search into. And he does come with a lot of research and knowledge. So we'll talk to him in a little bit. And Dan, before we break, we got a couple minutes here. I want to talk about the new season of Prairie Sportsman that starts Sunday night, 7:30 p.m. on Pioneer PBS. You can also find it on a PBS station near you or watch it on the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel. In fact, sometimes the episodes are on our YouTube channel before they air too. So we're kicking it off with the David A. Anderson Warrior Walleye Shootout. Did I get that right?
Today, David A. Anderson Memorial
It's
Walleye
a long
Shootout.
name. it's such a great event though. And I think they had 155 boats registered for that tournament last year up at Lake of the Woods. Just an unbelievable event. Great people behind it. Great people involved. Great participants. Like we interviewed a bunch of people that were taking part in it, and
there was that Tom Boley guy. I don't know. He doesn't. I don't know if he knows how to catch walleyes or anything.
Yeah, right. Really neat deal, and you can see that coming up on Sunday night. Dan, this week we also filmed with a taxidermist who's 83 years old.
Yeah, and he's nailing your deer. Like, it looks good. It looks really good.
He has some of the quickest turnaround times I've heard of for big game taxidermists. Some great prices. He's been doing it, David, since 1956.
Wow.
Think of the deer stories he's heard in that shop.
Yeah. Probably a lot of change in technology, too, and forms and...
Yeah, he talks about some of the stuff he did 30 years ago, and
he had an old form in there that he's going to redo too.
Really?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, he's like, well, it was pretty good for 30 years ago, but it needs to be redone. But just a really neat guy, interesting guy, lots of character, and man, so much. I asked him how many deer he thinks he's done, and he's like, I have no idea. I couldn't tell you. And then I was talking to one of our buddies around here. He's like, hey, was that, do I know who you were filming with? I said, yeah. And he goes, oh, yeah, he did my deer a few years back, but it took him 2.5 years to get my deer back. I'm like, really? Because he's usually pretty quick on a turnaround. He goes, well, he did fall off his shed and break his back. And
that'll slow you down.
That slowed him down a little bit. But still going strong at 83. I had no idea I knew he was a little bit of an older gentleman. I had no idea that he was 83 years old. So that'll be coming up in the new season. Dan, what else sticks out for you for the new season of Prairie Sportsman?
Well, we get to film with Carl Erickson and Ray Ruiz. A couple elementary schools from Woodbury went to Como Lake in St. Paul to do some ice fishing as a school-sanctioned field trip. And that's really cool. We're heavy kind of on the fishing tournaments this year. We filmed the SATT TOC Tournament of Champions on Big Stone. These kids are fishing for college scholarships. How cool is that? They can get part of their college paid for if they catch the right 7 largemouth bass. So pretty neat. We've done a lot of cool stuff, and we actually do have some more filming to do this winter that is coming up. Hopefully get up to Mille Lacs and get a few other things done there. But by the way, this time I actually figured out what David's doing.
Oh, okay.
So Saturday at 9 a.m. at the New Brighton Community Center, there's a Girl Scout cookie rally.
Ooh, oh, count me in.
So I think...
Bring me back some tag-alongs.
Are you buying or selling, though, David?
Ooh, buying. Buying all of them.
I didn't know
is
what David's doing.
I didn't know if he was part of the selling crowd of Girl Scouts of America. But, good luck this weekend.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Hopefully you make it to Sunday to watch Prairie Sportsman.
I should.
I hope.
Brett, do you still want to be doing podcasts when you're 83?
I mean, probably.
Gosh. Could you imagine his memory then?
I know, it's terrible already. That'll be my podcast. What did I just say?
Yeah.
What did I do yesterday?
Am I still going to be the one producing it? Because I don't know if I want to be producing your podcast when you're 84.
Oh, man. Good times.
I want to go sell Girl Scout cookies with David.
That's right.
Bring me back some Girl Scout cookies, David. All right. Joe Henry's coming up with the Lake of the Woods Fishing Report, and Dusty Backer talking about chronic wasting disease, trying to find out the truth behind the fight against CWD all on the way. It doesn't get much better than fresh perch and fresh walleye. If you're looking for an exciting winter fishing destination, come to Devil's Lake, North Dakota. Haybale Heights Campground and Resort is on the ice with a fleet of snow bears, keeping you mobile and warm so you can stay on the roaming schools of fish. Haybale Heights on the east end of Devil's Lake has knowledgeable guides, comfortable cabins, and their own lake access, making your trip as successful and stress-free as possible. To book your trip, go to haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com. Hi, this is Sporting Journal Radio. I'm Brett Amundson. Thanks for tuning in on the network, by demand, wherever you get podcasts, maybe Spotify, or if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you. Thank you very much. This segment is brought to you by Tasman Lake Lodge. Catch trophy lake trout and northern pike in northwest Saskatchewan. They are now booking for summer of 2025 dates. Personal best pike, personal best lake trout, usually caught by our guests up there. Find out more at tasmanlake.com. All right, so I was put in touch with somebody. I heard about some discussion about chronic wasting disease in North Dakota recently. There's been some chatter on the social medias. And, of course, here in western Minnesota, there's been some more CWD news with some positive cases and things like that. And I was told to talk to this guy that we're going to have on right now. His Facebook profile is Chronic Wasting Disease. He's Dusty Backer, and he joins us right now. Dusty, how you doing?
Hey, doing good, Brett. How about you guys?
Doing well. CWD's been in the news, of course, for quite a while. First discovered in, it depends on what you read, but back in the 50s or 60s in Colorado and mule deer. And then it has spread from there, and people worry about it spreading to humans. It's a scary thing when you think about it like that, because as we've discussed many times in this show, if chronic wasting disease were to pass to a human, you can imagine what that'll do to our whitetail herds out there. Fighting this disease, or fighting chronic wasting disease, has lowered a lot of deer numbers as well. Not everybody agrees with the fight and the methods that are going on out there. And Dusty, you've been pretty vocal about what's been going on in North Dakota and how that fight has gone, how it's funded, and just some different things about the research about chronic wasting disease. So we wanted to have you on to talk about it. So this is something that's become a big topic for you lately, hasn't it?
It's been huge the last couple of years, and not just North Dakota, but we're working for several states, probably at least 7-8 states, exposing this hypocrisy when it comes to the prion hypothesis. Because as you stated, Brett, in 1967, they labeled CWD chronic wasting disease. So it's actually a label, because a neurodegenerative disease of the brain and spinal cord doesn't have to be just a TSC, as the agencies say, which is a prion disease. The deer could have Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or MS or ALS. It just depends of what part of the brain or spinal cord, the white matter of the brain that called the myelin, is deteriorating, and no test can pick that up. So there's so much hypocrisy after 57 years, and they still don't know, because it's not a prion disease. A prion doesn't even exist.
Yeah, I think we got a little bit of a bad connection with you there. We might try to work on that a little bit. But when you say like the prion doesn't exist, the chronic wasting is similar to like mad cow or scrapies and sheep. How different is it from that? Are you saying that like the research or the diseases in those particular instances are different than chronic wasting disease, or what's the relation that, in your opinion, what's the relationship with those diseases?
So mad cow and scrapie and CWD and CJD in humans is what they consider a TSC, a transmissible spongiform encephalopathy, which is holes in the brain. If you look into the pathology of CJD compared to CWD, it's just holes in the brain. It's identical. There's no difference. It's just the deteriorating of the myelating. And CJD in humans is not contagious. Mad cow is not contagious. They're telling us scrapie and CWD are the only two contagious neurodegenerative diseases. And that's just not true. Because in CWD, after 57 years, all they have is inoculation studies. And we can dive into this deeper, but we have asked our agency, and keep in mind, these agencies have all the documents and resources at their fingertips to show it's contagious or to show us a prion exists. So we asked our agency for two items. One was a prion on the microscopic slide, and one was the contagious of CWD. And they couldn't show us either. They sent us a 2021 research paper of, they said it was a prion seen under the microscope of 81,000 magnification. The entire 2021 research paper is full of graphics, and there's couple slides in there. And if you read the slides actually say fibrils. Fibrils are just connective tissue. They could be blood vessel or collagen. That's not a prion. We've worked with Dr. Wallach because he used electron microscope of 120,000 magnification and has never seen a prion. He's got a book in the Smithsonian Institute, was worth $25,000 brand new, and is seen as a national treasure, and again, has never seen a prion under the microscope. So we went further into this, Bret, and reached out to Case Western, who's the leading prion institute in the nation for the human side, because all the biopsies across the nation on the humans are sent to Case Western to see if they could show us a prion under the microscope, and they couldn't. In fact, when we emailed them just for a picture of the prion under the microscope, they had no idea what we were talking about. It took a couple of emails and a couple phone calls to get to the bottom of it, and we finally got a hold of the pathology administrator, and she couldn't even show us. She sent us the same 2021 research paper our agency sent. So just for the viewers to keep this in mind, what are they testing the last 30, 40 years? They say prion, but a 2021 research paper just shows, and it's just fibrils at 81,000 magnification. And there's a prion biologist who's been studying so-called prions for 25 years, Jason Bartz. And if you listen to his podcast, it's still a theory too, never seen one. He makes synthetic prion proteins, and they jam these synthetic proteins into animals and say it tests positive. Well, for one, that's gain-of-function research, and that's what the kind of the studies that our agency sent us that say it's contagious, and that is not natural transmission. The only study that they had to show us contagious was they put a deer to sleep every week in light anesthesia and jammed it with saliva. And they did this for 2 months, and then they tested positive. Well, can you imagine the stress and whatever these tests are picking up, because they didn't do necropsies to actually see the myelin degrading. And the Jason Bartz from Creighton University said, wow, prions are so small, they're hard to visualize. They're just a little bit bigger than the double helix. Well, Dr. Wallach saw the double helix, double strand molecules with his electron microscope of 126,000. So after 57 years, this is literally still a hypothesis.
All right. So we should talk about what a prion is exactly. It's like a misfolded protein or something like that. When they first talked about chronic wasting disease back in the 1967, and this was at a government research facility, from what I've been reading too, which I didn't realize it came out of a government research facility. Were they talking about prions then? Prions, whatever?
No, they did not know at that time what was causing the wasting disease. Stanley Prusner labeled it in 1982 as a misfolded protein, and he just coined it a prion. So Stanley Prusner doesn't even have pictures of prion. It's
all right. We're going to work on your connection here because you're just cutting out a little bit, but we're going to take a break. We have more with Dusty Backer talking about chronic wasting disease, and what I want to talk to him about what happened in North Dakota, because there was a legislature got involved. There was some licenses that were sold that were funding some chronic wasting disease fight, and the hunters in North Dakota didn't like that so much. So more with Dusty when we come back on Sporting Journal Radio.
Sick of eating tag soup? It's time to own your odds this fall with OnX Hunt, the GPS hunting app trusted by millions of hunters. Now you'll have access to nationwide public and private land ownership information, waypoints, optimal win for each stand, tracks, and much more. All at your fingertips. Go to onxmaps.com/hunt and use code SJR20 at checkout to receive 20% off your membership. That's code SJR20.
We're back, Sporting Journal Radio, talking chronic wasting disease right now with Dusty Backer from North Dakota. Dusty, I appreciate you coming on to talk about this because deer hunting, we're in Minnesota, and I always tell people whitetails, and this is true across the country in a lot of places, whitetails are number one. When it comes to hunting in Minnesota, whitetails are hands down number one. Whitetails and walleyes, number one in Minnesota. It's a big thing for us. We have a lot of people that are passionate about it. In fact, I shot a buck in Saskatchewan, and I had to go through the CWD guidelines on bringing my deer back to get it to the taxidermist here in Minnesota. And we were over there with him this week, and I was telling him, like, deer make people crazy. Like whitetail, people freak out about whitetail hunting. They love them. They love their deer, and they're going to be they're going to care about how they're being managed. And when it comes to the fight against CWD, not everybody agrees with it. And it has decimated a lot of deer herds in a lot of popular hunting areas. There's been a lot of discussion about it. And it came up in North Dakota last year. And what happened? There were some baiting restrictions.
Yeah, so in North Dakota, if you have a detection within 25 miles of another deer unit, they just put you in a restriction. They call it a baiting restriction, but it's not. It's a hunting restriction. We can still put any food down anywhere, anytime, any amount, even in the restricted units in the entire state of North Dakota. But the game fish tell us we can't hunt over it. Because of legislation back in 2009, the people won the battle saying the game of fish can't control feeding of wildlife. So the people control that. However, the game and fish control method of take. So they can tell us we can't hunt over that feed in the restricted units. I mean, more hypocrisy.
Sure. So you can feed, you just can't hunt over it.
Correct.
And then they were using funds raised from hunting licenses, from licenses sold in the state to fund the fight against CWD. And that was something that you guys didn't agree with.
Absolutely not. So we've been looking at this with several other states because there's a lot of ways they're receiving money from this. They have Pittman-Robertson. A lot of states use the federal funds from Pittman-Robertson, the sporting goods tax. Ours use Pittman-Robertson and our local fees, our local hunting and fishing fees, and any federal funds from any CWD grants. And they've used $919,000 of our local hunting and fishing fees in 17 years in North Dakota, which is actually a lot of money for one confirmed deer out of 50,000 deer tested. But it's really pennies compared to a lot of these other states like Minnesota, Missouri, Texas. Texas spends over $2 million a year, $2 to $4 million. Missouri spent $800,000 just last year, and the NBC has slaughtered 23,000 deer in Missouri. I mean, kill them all to save them all. It's just absolutely criminal. I don't even call it insanity anymore after 57 years. Like even Minnesota, it's like y'all being so restricted, and the only way to confirm a neurodegenerative disease is by necropsy or biopsy. These tests are not picking up this deadly neurodegenerative disease. These tests pick up viruses, bacteria, fungus, yeast. It's just criminal.
I was looking at one of the graphics on your Facebook page, and I'm going to try to Google it right now too, but looked like Minnesota spent $1.3 million fighting chronic wasting disease, and we did reach a level in Minnesota where it was some threshold where they wouldn't use culling as a method to fight it anymore. So at least they're not, as far as I know, they're not out there killing deer anymore like they were. But I'm going to try to look up these numbers again. But that is definitely a lot of money to spend. For sure.
Well, do you know from Minnesota, are they having you hunters do it through tags? Because in North Dakota, our game and fish slaughtered 52 deer a couple years ago, and they just took wrath from that. All were negative, disposed of all the meat, but now they just basically, in the couple CWD zones, they give out just thousands of tags. They're letting hunters do it and don't even know.
So there's some zones that have that, but there's one up by Bemidji. There was a carcass found that tested positive for CWD around Black Duck, Minnesota, and I was hunting up there in that zone this year, and it was still one deer. It was an either or tag. It was still one deer, and they required testing for the opening weekend of the firearm season, but that was it for that. It was still one deer zone up there. I think some of the 600 zones are a little bit different. If I'm remembering correctly, there might be a few more tags handed out there. But not every area where CWD is detected in Minnesota gets automatically, here's a bunch of tags, go shoot a bunch of deer and test them.
That's good to hear, because we got to get away from the test. And that's what we're doing. We have 3 bills. The CWD local hunting and fishing fees failed in the House. It didn't even make it a committee. It was a no vote, 9-3. But it failed in the House. But we brought another bill that we wanted proof of a prion existed, and every detection must be knee crop seed. And that bill, we're still waiting for results coming out of committee. We came up with a compromise because they can't show us a prion. So what we want is our Game and Fish cannot call it a positive unless they do a knee crop seed to see the myelin degrading. We're going to have some numbers on our website for detection and how many deer tested. And if they want to call it positive, it has to be necropsy. And we want exact coordinates of where all these deer that they say have detections be reported.
So, and maybe you mentioned this and I missed it, I apologize, but if they're not doing an necropsy, what tests are they doing that is putting a positive deer out there? Positive.
They're using what they call the ELISA test. That's basically their screening test. So if they have a so-called positive with ELISA, then they do the gold standard, which is the IHC, where a pathologist looks at it, but they're not looking at the degrading of the myelin. They just take a lymph node or the Obex and kind of mush it up, and then put a stain in there to kill any antigens, and then whatever's left, if it's still stained, they're saying those are prion. But they can't show us a prion on an electron microscope, the best ones in the world.
Okay, well, our signal apparently didn't get any better here, so we're losing you a little bit there. But I want to keep going with this because I like this discussion, and I can promise you a lot of people care about it. And I'm trying to break down some numbers here in Minnesota and where the money comes from. It looks like some of it comes from our general fund, and some of it comes from the Game and Fish Emergency Response. But this is disease outbreaks. So I don't think this is just chronic wasting disease. It's probably, I don't know if they'd use this for EHD2 or maybe some sort of other disease outbreaks.
And by the way, David just shared a link with me here. David, you want to explain what you just looked at here?
So it's the late CWD season in Minnesota, and it was for the 2024 season. It was December 20th through December 22nd in 8 of the 600 zones, and it was unlimited.
Just for the weekend.
Just for the weekend,
and
yeah.
It's those 8 zones. And the 600, so that's our 600 series zones, which are CWD. I think I don't know the right criteria of what distinguishes something as all of a sudden a 600 series zone. I know it's a CWD zone, but there must be some criteria to label that, because I know there's other zones that have had detection that are not a 600 series zone. But that's interesting. They are still. I'll be curious if that happens again this year, though. Now that they've talked about not calling deer, if they do an unlimited bag hunt again in 25.
And maybe that not calling deer is in reference to bringing in sharpshooters and wiping out.
Yeah, they're just having the public do it.
Right.
But that also might include this hunt. So that hunt, I haven't looked at 25 regulations that we might not have that hunt in 2025. Right. But that's what we've done in years past.
Well, most of the people don't realize that the AFWA document, all 50 states are tied to this document and are contributing members. So the Associations of Fish and Wildlife Agency is a nonprofit, and they're the ones pushing this narrative. 30 contributors wrote this document and picked the peer-reviewed, and there's a few names on there that you probably recognize, but one is Kristen Schuler. Kristen Schuler also wrote the prion hypothesis, an examination of the evidence that these states follow. I mean, she says it in plain sight. It's a hypothesis. And when you look at that document, literally they made synthetic prions using E. coli bacteria and injected them into mice. That's a gain of function research. And in this document, there's 162 words, such as we believe, suggest, possibly, could be, 162 words. There is no consensus in science. Like, that's how criminal this is. 57 years later, this is all we have. This is pushing the CWD narrative, consensus.
So if they find a deer that is sick, that maybe passed away, and it clearly was struggling, had some sort of issues, if it's not dying from that chronic wasting disease, what do you just could be a host of other things?
Absolutely. It could be, if it's not a toxin from chemicals or some other source, it's nutrient deficiencies. Dr. book that's in the Smithsonian Institute was a 10-year study, 17,500 autopsies with an electron microscope, keep in mind, that could see the double helix and the millions and millions of blood chemistries, and there's not a prion in there. But what that book proves, and why it's a national treasure, every animal and every human being who dies of natural causes dies of nutritional deficiency disease. So what I'm saying is Dr. Wallach has proved that these neurodegenerative disease are nutritional deficiency disease. So we always hear about Wyoming, Colorado, Saskatchewan, Alberta, the population is down 80%, while they are predicting. But majority of those animals are disappearing off the landscape because of nutrient deficiencies. Because deer can have a zinc deficiency and be spinning circles in emaciation, cobalt, thiamine. All this is in the book that's in the Smithsonian as a national treasure. One deficiency, and these deers can be spinning circles. That's why you have to necropsy and see them mildly degrading.
All right. We're going to, for our radio listeners, we got to go to the podcast, but we've got more here with Dusty Backer. So if you want to hear more of this conversation, go to the YouTube Sporting Journal Radio YouTube channel or Sporting Journal Radio on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And this segment is brought to you by the 2025 Minnesota Deer and Turkey Classic back at Canterbury Park in Shakopee. March 14, 15, and 16. Daniel Schmidt from Deer and Deer Hunting will be there. Don and Candy Kiske of Realtree Whitetail Freaks. Melissa Bachman will be there from Winchester's Deadly Passion. And I'll be there on Saturday, March 15th from 11 to 1, right inside the door, right at the booth, right when you come in and you buy your ticket. Just look to your right, and I'll be sitting there as well. You can find out more. You can bring your Minnesota bucks in to get scored from the Minnesota official measurers. Maybe get yourself in the book. You can find out more at mndeerclassic.com. All right, Dusty, I want to ask you this because as you look back on the history of chronic wasting disease, and it started in Colorado and it's spread, and Wisconsin is a pretty high prevalence rate. Minnesota is growing. North Dakota's got some cases, whatever. Then you start reading about it showing up in, the cervids in Europe. How does it, unless people are, and maybe they're transporting captive animals, because you hear about cervid farms, captive cervid farms being kind of ground zero for a lot of these, locations where there's chronic wasting disease being reported. But if it is something that's being transmitted across these animals, how does a mule deer in Colorado have it, and then all of a sudden a moose or an elk in, Norway or wherever over in Europe all of a sudden have it? Unless there's captive cervids being transported. Maybe I just don't know about that, and that's happened. But how else would you explain that?
It's a testing epidemic, Brett. They just testing, just like they did with the 2020 thing, and people walking around asymptomatic. Well, they didn't have anything. They're just picking up old RNA, dead cells, and it can happen with the deer too. So we could literally quit testing, and the money goes away, CWD goes away. And I want to make this clear. Farm cervids are not spreading a neurodegenerative disease because neurodegenerative diseases are not contagious.
So are you saying...
They just are forced to test more.
Are you saying then that this is just something that's naturally occurring? Like these deer are just having natural things like this is always? Like CWD came around once they started testing for it basically, but it's always been in cervids?
Correct. But you got to remember, the test is not picking up a neurodegenerative disease. Let's say a deer had a cold virus from a year ago. The test could be picking up that. The more you amplify these tests, the more things they pick up. Because neurodegenerative diseases are just super rare.
There was a study that I think I was trying to find it before. We just ran out of time before we started doing the interview here, but they infected venison and fed it to monkeys, right? Somewhere up in Canada. Do you know this? I'm sure you know the study I'm talking about. And originally they were saying that they were able to, they got sick, they got infected, but there's been some conflicting details about those reports. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm not for sure with that study, but I know there's a lot of inoculation studies. We've looked at about, I don't know, I'm sure 90% of them that are out there. But jamming with brain material or feeding material when infected with, say, viruses or bacteria, yeah, the animals are going to test positive for that. But it's not a neurodegenerative disease. That's why my question is, did those animals get an autopsy, a necropsy, to see the myelin degrading? Can things kill the myelin cells? Absolutely. Like bacteria, viruses, fungus, they can cause the myelin cell to die and the myelin to deteriorate. And a deer, or cervid, makes cholesterol in their liver that takes 50 nutrients to do it. And cholesterol, myelin is 100% cholesterol. So if the deer aren't getting the nutrients they need, they're going to have myelin deficiencies and have problems. But it's super rare because majority of the animals are getting what they need. I mean, Dr. Wallach, he's the one who saved the white rhino. They used to be 350 back in the 60s, and now there's 17,000 by actual count. He saved the bears. All the bears of every species were dying in the world. And he saved them too because they were actually feeding them peanuts at the zoos, and the peanuts were giving them liver cancer from the aflatoxins, the mold that was living in the peanuts. Changed it to dog food, and he saved the bears. I mean, it goes on and on and on. The animals that Dr. Wallach has saved.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just
It's
trying
a lot of information. I understand it.
Well,
especially if people haven't heard this, but the testing and the money goes away, so does CWD. These tests are not picking up a brain or spinal cord disease. And not only, think about this, if the prions have never been seen, and let's just say this 2021 research paper it was, which is fibrils, it's not, but let's just say it was. How do they know what they were testing the last 40 years? And not only how do they know what they're testing, how do they prove that it caused a disease? Jamming brain material or saliva in all these animals, all inoculation studies, or taking them out of a pen for 10 years, put them back in the pen for 10 years, and they get sick. That doesn't prove anything, natural transmission at all. The inflammation and the stress, and I mean, this goes on, that the cells are going to die in that deer and it's going to get sick.
There was also a report that came out a couple years ago where they said 2 men got sick from eating venison, or they came from the same hunting party. You guys remember that story? And that was also was proved to be false.
Yep. Just more misinformation. I mean, 57 years. Let's just put this in perspective for the listeners. There's only a handful of deer, one in North Dakota and one in Texas, that have actually, I'm going to say, died with CWD, because the one in North Dakota was actually necropsied, but it had a brain abscess, which could have been a co-infection causing the myelin cells to die. But there's 2 in the nation after 57 years. No human has ever gotten it from eating venison. There's ranches in Wisconsin, high-fence ranches, that are very positive for whatever these tests are picking up. And it's killed 1 deer on their ranch, and it had pneumonia. No deer are sick. They're healthy. All the hunters are eating all the deer, and dog bones are chewing on the antlers of all these CW deer. and nothing ever happens.
It's definitely one of those things that makes you think twice before you bite in. I mean, would you, if you shot a deer that tested positive, would you eat it?
100%. If it didn't look sick, 100%. Obviously, if it's a deer emaciated, weighs 70 pounds, no, I wouldn't eat it. But I wouldn't send it in for test either, though, for our agency, because it'll come back CWD when it could have died of a zinc deficiency. That's what's in Dr. Zwolak's book. All these collared studies in Wisconsin and Missouri, all these sick deer where they necropsy to see the mild deterioration, because it could be a zinc deficiency, a thiamine deficiency. Because I know Missouri has tested 320,000 deer, I think, and there's been 5 clinical, and not a single one was necropsied. So those 5 clinical were nutrient deficient, more likely.
So let me ask this question. Why, after 57 years, is this narrative still being pushed? What's the reasoning for all this testing to still be done, and what would, say, a government agency be benefiting from this?
We really just go back to funds, because 2002, funds came, big push came. 2012, 2021, and now that big HR 5608, $400 million from 22 to 28 passed the omnibus. They threw in the omnibus bill, December of 2022. Well, now look at this big push across the nation, and in the federal bill it states the more detections, the more funds. The harder their management for CWD, the more funds. After 57 years, testing, restricting, culling. Testing, restricting, culling. That's what we call insanity anymore. This is criminal what they're doing to the people, what they're doing to the deer. And like North Dakota, the last 2 bills, and the 2 grants, one received in 2022 and one in 2024, shifting behaviors to lower the risk of CWD, a multimedia approach. That's our behaviors. This is supposed to be a deer disease, but they're shifting our behaviors, the people's. That's Billboard magazine. They've got $250,000 the last 3 years for human dimensions. In human dimensions, there's a section, page 87, in that 111-page AFWA document that these agencies follow. That's why they all do the same thing. It's criminal.
Well, when all else fails, follow the money is what I always tell people. And in this day and age,
it's a good thing Elon Musk listens to this show. So
huge fan.
He'll expect to knock on the door from Doge here pretty soon.
Definitely could change.
Hook us up.
So, I want to just, for people listening to this, I'm sure most people watching or listening to this are aware of the difference between EHD and CWD, but the epizootic hemorrhagic disease is not the same as CWD. It actually can be very fatal in a short amount of time. It's usually in dry years, and deer are bitten by a midge that infects them, and they're usually found by water, and it's usually groups of deer found by water. So EHD, different than chronic wasting disease. And Dusty, so you mentioned you have a website. What is your website, and what do you think the plan is moving forward? What would you like to see?
We have a Facebook page, Chronic Wasting Disease. And then everybody needs to go watch CWD. They missed it by a million miles on YouTube. It'll explain a lot. But you can message us on our Facebook page too. My wife runs that page, and she does an amazing job and doesn't get enough credit behind the scenes. But we put a lot of unreal information out there for all the states to use. And we're working with attorneys and several other states too, just to end this. And I would like to see the money get shut off, the testing just to go away, and CWD goes away.
So back up to that YouTube video real quick. Dan, throw that graphic back up there if you still have it. Who is Joel Wallach? Who is that?
Dr. Joel Wallach. He has done 32,000 autopsies on over 600 species of animals and humans, and has done millions and millions of blood chemistries. And he's got a book in the Smithsonian Institute as a national treasure And there's also, he's done, I think, 12,000 on autopsies on humans. 3,000 of those human autopsies are in that book that's in the Smithsonian, because he has 3 postdocs in pathology and one's comparative pathology, because there's no difference from an animal or a human. We all have the same diseases depending on the nutrient deficiencies. So for every mineral deficiency, there could be 10 different diseases. And he proved that 90 essential nutrients the bodies need, the animals need, 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, and 3 fatty acids. And you get several diseases if one of those are missing. And he sued the FDA 9 times. The reason sudden infant death syndrome doesn't exist anymore is because of Dr. Wallach. He sued the FDA, forcing them to put selenium and some other nutrients in baby formula. They were blaming it on mothers laying on children, but they were actually dying of heart attacks. He did 1,700 autopsies on little kids in Keishan, China, and they were dying of heart attacks. So he sued the FDA. He sued the FDA for muscular dystrophy and cystic fibrosis that were thought to be genetic diseases. And they fired him after he reversed, and he can use the C word because he sued for it. And he sued the FDA for making a claim that omega fatty acids help with heart disease. And the list just goes on, but they blacklisted him several years ago. You can't out-theorize 32,000 autopsies with one of the best electron microscopes in the world that can see the double helix and has never seen a prion.
Well, I'll tell you what, that is interesting. And you were talking about him earlier, and I just didn't hear the name when you were talking about him earlier, obviously, but that's somebody that's bringing some experience. And this is such an interesting conversation. You know, we've known about chronic wasting disease in the fight. I mean, and particularly in the work that I do, we've worked with the DNR quite a bit here in Minnesota and done some stories on it with Prairie Sportsmen and things like that. But I remember when it really started to ramp up, like Wisconsin got hit really hard and they were starting to fight it, and then Minnesota really kind of got ramped up, and you always heard in the back of the room, this is all BS.
Well, remember there was rumors going around a while ago that Wisconsin just gave up.
Yeah.
They just kind of gave up on it. And I know they're still spending a bunch of money and doing testing over there. You know, they wanted us to test. But I remember that. It was like 5 years ago or something. It was like, oh, Wisconsin's done with this. They're just giving up. And then.
Well, because it wasn't working.
Yeah. And now they're back to testing it. So I wonder if that's part of that push you were talking about earlier. They found some more money for it or something. I don't know.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I don't know. I have no idea, but I just noticed this year that they were spending more money on it, and the last 2 years have asked for tests going on over there again.
Sure. And I know, like Illinois, that I think they're done sharpshooting finally, too, because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like, if the deer is going to die from this deadly disease, let Mother Nature take its course. Why are we slaughtering all these hundreds of thousands of healthy deer and testing them? Kill them to save them makes 0 sense. Like I said, they can't prove it's contagious. They can't prove a prion exists. I mean, people need to be held accountable. We don't want to see this just go away. These agencies need to be accountable for what they've done.
Well, it's a lightning rod of a topic, and you've got obviously a lot of game management agencies. And when you've been talking about agency, you're referring to the North Dakota Game and Fish Department, correct? Over there in this
North
conversation.
Dakota Game and Fish, any DNR, TPWD is out of control. Yep.
But I mean, you've got some big deer organizations that are also, talking about the fight against CWD. It's hard to pick a side because of all the voices in the room. And the biggest thing for me is we need to get to the truth, and we need to figure it out. And if we are wasting money, we need to stop wasting the money. I know Dan and I have discussed this in the past. When we hear from somebody like you that says this is all just a sham, it's like, do you just halt all the research then because it is a sham, or do you continue doing some research to find out if it's a sham? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you just halt everything, you need to keep continuing to find definitive truth if you can out there. So whether it's some shifting some research or having outside agencies, I like the fact that you don't want to use license funding for it anymore. So maybe you find ways where you're not it's not taxpayer money or whatever the case may be. I don't know. I mean, I'm not opposed to user fees. So if it is affecting deer hunters out there, if deer hunters are funding it, that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. But if you're wasting money on the wrong tests, the wrong research, and you're just, there's biologists out there just trying to continue funding work, getting paid to work, which is what it sounds like you're suggesting out there, that, there's some money available and we need our research is running out for this other thing we're trying to figure out.
Correct.
That's a waste of money, and that shouldn't be the right way. So what would you suggest then moving forward?
Well, just I want to make it clear to the listeners, I'm not saying a neurodegenerative disease in deer doesn't exist. Absolutely it does, because it's a iron deficiency. However, it is extremely rare and it's not contagious. So I would suggest, let me ask this, Brett. There's been over $1 billion spent over 57 years, and they're still doing the same things.
Yeah, sounds like a waste of money. Yeah.
So it really just needs to go away. I'd be for let's say a 5-year hiatus. Nothing done for CWD in 5 years. And in harsh winters in the northern half of the United States, let's feed the deer with the best of the best, like Mineral 365, and see what happens. Because in Texas, they're just slaughtering deer left and right, farm survey deer, and the population continues to grow. And they don't touch the wild deer because the people would just go ballistic. But they force the breeder deer to test everything. I mean, there's so much hypocrisy around the CWD. The CWD itself is 100% a scam. You can't even make this up anymore. I've just pointed out. Is it a real thing? Yes. It's not contagious. Let the deer do the thing. That's what they say about EHD. Nothing we can do about it. Well, CWD, you can't do anything about it either.
So it's like yeah. The one thing I will say, we've been hearing about this, people in the back saying for years, it's a scam, whatever. I will say what you have done with the research and the amount of knowledge that you're bringing to the argument makes it, that's what a guy needs to do to try to fight something like this, is you have to have some facts and some knowledge and research to back it all up. So it's an interesting discussion, and I really appreciate you coming on to talk about it, because we all care about the deer. We all want to be able to hunt deer for generations to come. In this room, we all eat way more venison than beef.
Yeah, what's beef? Never heard of it.
Exactly.
What's beef?
Yeah.
My family lives on it too. Absolutely. And we're the conservationists. The hunters are. If we truly thought CWD was killing all the deer, we'd be all about money and funding. I'd rather see research towards EHD. Our mule deer don't die from EHD, thankfully, or we'd have no deer left after that outbreak in 2021. That killed 90% of our whitetails. That's good research. We don't need any more funds wasted on the CWD topic.
Well, I'll tell you what. I want to have you back on. We'll maybe try to improve on some of that rural North Dakota internet service that you got out there, or where I don't know where you're at, but we'll let's do this again. But I really appreciate you coming on again. Chronic wasting disease on Facebook, and I'm gonna watch that video. I hadn't seen that video on YouTube yet. Chronic wasting disease, missed it by a mile. Is that what you said it was called?
CWD, they missed it by 1,000,000 miles.
They missed it by 1,000,000 miles. All right, so we'll watch that.
There's our video to watch. We haven't done that. We used to do a segment every week, video to watch on YouTube. We haven't done that for like 2 months. There we go. We just brought it back.
There it is. Love it.
32 minutes. Appreciate it, guys.
I want to see what's the shirt that you're wearing. I see "We the People." What's the rest of it say? Keeping the herd healthy.
Keeping the herd healthy.
Is that your shirt, or who came up with that one?
So we have a group of 15 people that has done amazing things in North Dakota, and our page too has been huge. But our bill 2137, where they can't restrict hunting over supplemental feed, has just sent waves in North Dakota. So we blew it through the Senate, and it's going to be on the House side in March. So we could use support there too to just get it over the finish line for the people.
So North Dakota residents should call their reps and tell them to support this bill. That's what you're saying. All right.
Yes.
Very good.
Great.
Dusty, Really appreciate the time today. Thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate it too, Brett and guys. Thanks so much for having me on. Let's do it again.
Let's do it again.
Lake of the Woods, the walleye capital of the world, is calling out to you. From the Northwest Angle to the South Shore and Rainy River, this is the Midwest's #1 ice fishing destination. Walleyes, sauger, perch, northern pike, and eelpout. The fishing on Lake of the Woods is like a world of its own. Experience the most amazing fishing through one of the many full-service resorts featuring heated fish houses, ice transportation, meal plans, and sleeper fish house options. For more information, go to lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
All right, we're back on Sporting Journal Radio. Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism joins us right now, Joe, and it's we're mid-February. It's that almost transition time. Obviously, still some ice fishing left, but it's that time of year when people want to catch walleyes. They're going to start having to go to Lake of the Woods. It's going to be the only place really open for ice fishing for walleyes in Minnesota, and then springtime comes around. And I want to bring this up right away because our SJR 500. It's the 4th annual coming up. It is April 8th and 9th, I believe, right? April 8th and 9th.
Sounds right.
Yep. And
thanks, David.
We'll be thank you, David. We'll be out of Riverbend Resort, of course. It's a walleye and sturgeon tournament. We're donating some of the money back to the Keep It Clean program up there. And Joe, I just got word. It looks like Pat Calmerton and Jim Willis, our fellow Aglow members and friends in the outdoor industry, are going to be up there as well. And Dan, what did you say as soon as we found out?
Well, if anyone's ever been around Pat, or at least in the vicinity of Pat, like 20, 30 miles, you've known you're within the vicinity of Pat Calmerton. He's got some energy. So I think we might be somehow up at the Northwest Angle, and he'll catch a sturgeon at Birchdale, and we will hear it without any electronic communication. We will know. He's a good time.
I can't wait. It's gonna be so. He's gonna bring a lot of fun to that. I mean, we have fun anyway. But this tournament, Joe, as you know, keeps growing year after year, and we keep getting more and more people. And having more guys like that is just gonna be a lot more fun as we continue to grow it.
I know Jim. Who's Pat?
Who's Pat?
Alexa,
Our pizza's done. Whoops.
No, Pat's a good dude, and he's a really avid outdoors guy, fishing, hunting, the whole ball of wax. And one thing about Pat, I hope he knows, he's coming from Wisconsin. I hope he realizes that he can't bring a spear. I mean, sturgeon, I don't know. You can't spear him in the Rainy River, Pat. And
right.
And the other thing too is, I mean, some of the boats we use on the Rainy River, they got kind of high sides, so we're gonna have to boost you in the boat. But we'll help you with that. So just and then just make sure you bring your A game, buddy.
Shots fired.
Fun shots. Pat's a good dude, and well, I tell you what, you want to talk about elevating a party. Holy smokes, man! I'm going to have to make sure that I'm disciplined.
Yeah, if you watching this or listening to this haven't come up yet for this, it's a good time. Even if you're just planning on spring fishing the Rainy River, of course, on those days, you don't have to stay with us. We don't have like a weigh-in or anything. We do a party at Riverbend. We give away prizes. We do the podcast live from there, so it's recommended that you come and join us there. But anyone fishing up there on the Rainy, it's between Franz Jevny and then Lake of the Woods, as long as you access between Wheelers and Franz Jevny. And then depending on what the ice conditions are like out on Lake of the Woods, you can fish out there, and we pay back for biggest sturgeon and biggest walleye. And I don't know why we picked that time of year, Joe. It's just fishing's just never very good.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you why we fixed that time of year is because, naturally the walleye season goes through April 14th. So we wanted to do it obviously before then, so walleyes were included. And then on top of it, we wanted to make it as late in the year as possible so that more of the river will be open. Mm-hmm. And that time of year, I mean, that week is normally a very good week of fishing, both for walleyes and for sturgeon. And we've proven that over the years. I mean, it's been great. And I would say this too, if you do plan on spring fishing up there, if you want to join this event, everybody is very welcoming, and it's $40 per person. If you're going to be up there fishing anyway or planning a trip, it's kind of a fun time to fish. It's during the weeks there's not as much traffic, and it's just a great group of people, rubbing elbows, having a beer at the bar, or grabbing dinner at Riverbend, or wherever you stay. But camaraderie with this group is it's enjoyable.
It's a great time. It's a fun tournament. Yeah, we got some cool prizes and some cash payouts, but really it's just a chance to go up and just enjoy some amazing fishing and have a little bit of fun. So, and last year, I'm looking. So if Tony Crowdy is watching this right now, I'm expecting to bring the Blackstone up again and cook us venison burgers on the river
on his birthday.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. All right. So it's a good time. You can find out more about that at sportingjournalradio.com. But plan, it's through Fish Donkey. So you'll sign up in the Fish Donkey app for the SJR 500 on the Rainy River, April 8th and 9th. We'll be based out of Riverbend Resorts. Come and join us. And Joe, you kind of hit on the dates a little bit and why we like to do it, because everyone's like, oh, that's during the week. That's Tuesday and Wednesday during the week. And it's, there's a couple of reasons we did that, including just because we want to try to get it in as late as possible to make sure that the river is open. Like last year was great. All the accesses were open. We had unbelievable fishing, but there's been a couple of years there where we've been at the accesses as they're opening them up, and we're moving down the river, and that's fun too. I mean, that's, to me, that the adventure can be part of the fun up there at that time of year as well.
Well, got a lot of good memories. Dodging, in some cases, you're dodging icebergs. Remember the one year you and I were fishing in the snow? I mean, it was coming down pretty hard, great big wet flakes, and it was like at first it was like, oh Lord, you see the freaking weather forecast. And then once we got out there, we got our ice fishing gear in anyway, just stay warm. It's easy. And, it was really cool. It's pretty as heck, the photography we did that day. Remember, we were jigging. We were doing all we catching one here, one there. And we decided to put on three-way rigs and pull cranks. And we started lighting it up. In fact, I remember that last day, towards the end of the day when we had to quit, we were on some nice freaking fish. I wish we'd had another hour on those fish. Holy man.
Yeah, who made up the times for this tournament? What an idiot.
Well, the thing is, though, that's another thing to bring up. Yeah, we have time constraints of when you can enter fish. It doesn't mean you have to stop fishing. You just keep fishing for fun. And, so if people don't want to just only fish from 8 to 4, go out earlier, stay later, but you just can't enter a fish. So it's really loosey-goosey, and you can do whatever you want. And just if you're out there 8 to 4, enter a fish in the tournament. Try to win some money.
It's nice because, you can go and have a few drinks the night before, stay up a little bit late. You can sleep in a little bit. It's cold in the mornings, usually in the spring, and it just gives you more time to get to where you want to go. And, it's not this hardcore thing where you got to get up at dark 30. And, it's kind of nice that way.
No. Brett won't do that.
No.
Ever.
No. You don't need to.
That's why Brett's part of it, see?
Yeah.
You don't need to at Lake of the Woods or the Rainy River. You don't need to be out there super early. And I want to mention one thing, too, Joe, about that. I want to mention something about those 2 days that we fished in that snowstorm. And it was me and you in your boat, and then Greg Jones joined us for a little bit as well. But I think we were in the only boat that didn't have a windshield, first of all. And then
where's this going?
No bimini top.
And no bimini. So it was... we had a great time, and we did stay warm. But when we were moving, it got a little cool. But
yeah, you know what? That's... it's all a matter of perspective. You got the right gear, because you can't control the weather. Your dad, I remember your dad, he was in your brother's boat, Wade's boat, right? And he had a nice top on it, but your dad wouldn't go under the top. He sat in the back, was getting covered with snow, jigging away. I mean, he was a trooper, and your dad at the time was still in his 80s, right?
Oh, yeah. I think it was a couple of years ago. He was probably 81 or 82. And, you could just see, like, he was just leaning into the wind like that, and he was, like, half covered in snow, and the other half was still his coat and his jacket, his regular colors. But, and he jokes all the time. He's like, I'm just tough. I didn't mind it. But I just don't think he wanted to stand up and move the 3 feet. But I'm not convinced. I'll get a phone call about this later, I'm sure.
I got to give credit. I hope I can be doing what Roadkill does when I'm 82.
Absolutely.
The nickname from one of the videos, Roadkill, from his buddies. But the other thing I'll say too is we use Fish Donkey as an app, and for those listeners that don't know, Fish Donkey is an app. It's a free app that you get just on your smartphone, and what it allows you to do is when you catch a walleye or a sturgeon, it allows you to put it on a bump board or a tape measure, and you always put the head of the walleye or the head of the fish to the left against the bump board part, and then you pinch the nose, you pinch, and you have your hands inside so you can see the measurement, and you have your buddy take a picture of you on the ruler, and then you hold it up for a hero shot. You take a shot of that, you make sure the photos are on your screen, you submit them, and it says, got one. And the fish is submitted, you let the fish go and swim away. It's a great, great app. It's easy to use. It's not hard at all. And we've just had great success with it. So I think that's another great thing, too. You don't have to, the fact it's catch and release for walleyes at that time. And, we don't have to worry about live well management. You don't have to worry about keeping fish in your fact, it's illegal.
The catch and release type tournaments are the way to go. Catch photo release or catch video release, whatever it is. To me, it's the way of the future, and I don't want to see any more weigh-ins personally. I know I'll get some pushback on that, but I think that kills a lot of fish, even if they are just bass. Oh, yeah, I guess I don't mind weigh-ins for bass tournaments. No, I don't like them.
You're really going to get a call.
But the problem is they try to release all those fish, and those are just such good fillets. They're just throwing back. Like, you could have just kept them and knifed them up. Like,
wait till we get on the muskie topic. Then Danny
Joe, let's talk ice fishing.
Those tournaments, you speak of that. Up at Lake of the Woods, currently... we're really trying to support the tournaments that are catch, record, release, Bret. And, we just, our board of directors and the majority of our resort community is just kind of shying away against hauling, Lake of the Woods, we get a lot of big walleyes. And if each team can catch 2 big walleyes a day, 1 for each person, can you imagine what's happened to these 28, 29, 30-inch walleyes when they're hauling them across the lake in a live well with surface water temperatures?
Killing them.
It's not good. And, we do promote the catch, record, release. Nothing against tournaments that are catch and keep and bring them to the scales. There's still some of those tournaments out there, and they are wonderful, wonderful tournament circuits. But, in our body of water anyway, we prefer the catch, record, release, put it that way.
There's no question that it's an exciting moment when you walk across, because I've done a couple of small tournaments where you walk across the stage holding up your fish, and it's kind of cool. People are taking pictures. I get it. You have this climactic moment on stage at a big tournament. I mean, a classic. The guy drives into a stadium and holds these fish up on stage. I get the spectacle of it, but when you're talking about conservation and health of a resource, I think that needs to be, and fish handling, that needs to be taken into consideration a little bit more these days. All right, Joe, I'm going to pivot though here and just real quick give us an update on what fishing is like up at Lake of the Woods right now.
Now, we've had a good February, really good February. Sometimes, in the middle of the winter, fish are spread out and, you still catch fish, but it just, man, we've had some reports. I mean, I'll tell you this. I was sitting with Marshall Monk grabbing lunch at the last St. Cloud Sports Show, and he gets a text from one of his customers holding up a nice walleye, from the fish house. So that's great. But then the comment was, holy smokes, I said, Marshall, fishing's been okay this morning. 4 of us have 50 walleyes. Well... that's better than okay, and that's not the norm. I don't want people to think that's the norm at all. That's wow, that's like one of those incredible days. But overall, people have been talking about, especially out in the deep mud, and then there's some resorts that are fishing structure too. They've been picking away at them pretty darn good. We've still got a lot of nice walleyes coming through. We've still got a lot of nice augers coming through. And as the trend continues with our jumbo perch, we're getting more jumbo perch this winter than we normally have in the past. So I tell you what, it's been good. And I can tell you that a lot of our ice roads now, every ice road is a little different. We have some ice roads that are out over 16 miles. Now you might say, man, I don't know if I want to drive 16 miles out on, that's a long ways to drive on the lake. Tell you what, you think driving on a plowed freeway, basically an ice freeway that's 5 lanes wide, nicely marked and watched every day like a hawk. That's the easy part. Can you imagine people plowing it and dragging houses across there? The reason they do it costs them a lot of money. They go through plows and transmissions and water pumps and a lot of labor to keep that road open. The reason they're doing it because they're following those fish. And if you're going to come up to their business and stay in one of their fish houses and fish for the day and stay back on shore at the resort or maybe stay in a sleeper fish house, they want you back next year. So they're doing everything they can to give you a good experience. Fishing can be fishing. There's weather fronts that come through. Those fish can move. But at the same time, they're working their tails off to make sure that hey, this is a very, very good outfitter that I'm going through, and I should frequent this person again, if that makes sense.
Hey, Joe, just want to mention that this segment is brought to you by North Dakota's and Upper Minnesota's favorite sportsman show at the Fargo Dome, March 6th through the 9th. The very best in resorts, lodges, and camps in the Midwest and Canada, boat show pricing, tackle, electronics, and more. And I'm guessing you'll have a booth there, Joe, maybe?
But Lake of the Woods Tourism has been there every year for years and years, and it's a wonderful show at the Fargo Dome. A lot of great eating places around there. If you want to stay overnight, there's lots of lodging in that area. But if you are in that area at all, Western Minnesota or the Dakotas, tell you what, it's a great show. I would encourage you to come out. Lots of outfitters, not only Lake of the Woods, but other destinations as well. If you're looking for other destinations, certainly there's boats and RV, just a whole bunch of stuff. Not RV so much, but just a bunch of camping equipment and just nice stuff.
FargoSportsShow.com is the website. And Joe, if people want to get a trip planned to Lake of the Woods yet this winter, or maybe this spring, what should they do?
Ice fishing through March 31st. We got an extended ice fishing season. Don't forget, check out our website, and that is lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.